Good evening. Good evening. Welcome to Your Mental Health Matters. My name is Crystal Kelly. Tonight, this show is brought to you by Our Neutral Voices. How everybody doing? We're here. Yeah. So excited. Thank you guys for joining us tonight. We have a very, very special guest on our podcast. We have Miss Shenita Bolton. So if that name sounds familiar, there's a reason why. So at this moment, we're going to take a moment to have her introduce herself. Again, we are just so honored to have you on our set tonight.
Well, I am honored to be here. So once again, Shenita Bolton, and I am excited tonight to share with you a little bit about Unveiled, overcoming trauma to walk in your divine purpose.
So a little bit about you before we get into the book. Are you from Fort Wayne? Are you from here?
I am not. I'm from Indiana.
Okay.
From a small town called Connorsville, Indiana.
Okay.
Lived there until I was 21 years old and moved to Richmond, Indiana, and lived there 26 years. And I've now been in Fort Wayne for 9 years.
Wow. Yes. Okay. So how did this story come to be? This amazing book that you have out right now.
So actually in July of 2024, so not so long ago, it was about 2:00 in the morning, and God woke me up and just said, I need you to write a book. And I kind of giggled and I said, you're talking to me? And so I said, about what? And I grabbed my pen and I grabbed a piece of paper, and God just began to speak to me that there are so many people dealing with trauma in their lives, and that we continue just to press it down and press it down. And as I speak a little bit about wearing that mask of I've got it all together. And when we keep pressing things down, that means we are filling it up with that past negative energy.
That's right.
And so it just led me to begin to think about my own journey. And so I initially thought this was a book that was supposed to be about my own trauma and my experience. And God said, your voice, but not just your voice. And I said, well, what do you mean? He said, focus on women. He said, women need to let it go. And so literally that morning, about 6:00, I got on Facebook and I just posted, hey, ladies, I'm going to be writing a book. It's called Unveiled, Overcoming Trauma to Walk in Your Divine Purpose. And if you have experienced trauma or going through trauma and trying to overcome that, I'd love for you to be a part of that. I went to work that morning, got home that evening, checked Facebook, and 44 women had inboxed me.
Wow.
So it just let me know at that moment that, okay, first of all, it was confirmation that I was supposed to do this, but also that it was true. So many people just longing to have a voice, but also just to be able to get those things that are buried so deep up to be just free and released. So that's what led me to this.
Oh, wow.
So,
Beautiful.
Ms. Shenita, so in starting your book and talking to the women, were there specific topics of trauma, or was it just general trauma?
So in the book, you're going to find about every type of trauma possible. Everything from abandonment to abuse, women who've been molested, women who've just been ridiculed. And so there's just a lot on the journey. I'll be very honest with you, as they began submitting their stories, I knew I had my own story to tell. I was just amazed. And I'm talking about women who I've known and some that I don't, because there's women all across the United States and some abroad that submitted. But just to know, when you look at someone, you think, oh my gosh, there's no way you went through all of that. Because, you know, we are taught. We're taught a lot of things. What goes on in the house stays in the house. You know, we're taught to wake up, put a smile on your face, and act like everything's all right. But it let me know that there are a lot of people that have been hurting and experiencing things. But it gave comfort, because it reminded me I'm not the only one that's gone through it.
That's right.
So in that, did you find some of the women, including yourself, were you feeling a healing process in that? I do realize that when we press things down for so long, that starts getting into our mental health, our physical health, and what have you. However, we also know that when we start releasing and sharing, that's also a healing process. So did you find a lot of healing for yourself, and then as well with some of the other women that share?
I think every woman that submitted their final draft said they never knew they needed it until they went through it. So definitely saw different women that began to heal, some of them that are still healing, because it's a process. Of those 44 women, 35 actually submitted because the others, they started writing and they reached out and said, it's too hard. They said, it's too hard, you know, but also gave me the opportunity to begin to do some ministry with them as well, because it's important. And I tell everyone and share in the book, I am not a therapist. I am not a psychologist. I'm just a woman of God that believes there is power in our voice.
That's right.
And so for those who I began to engage in conversations as they were submitting, they began to share their healing process and what that looked like. And it's different for everyone. It's different for everyone.
So were you nervous when you got the call from God to do this book, to share your story, and to reach out to other women to see if they had stories to share? Were you kind of worried about like women getting re-traumatized or being triggered in some kind of way?
Oh, absolutely, including myself. Because one of the things that I was nervous about is, one, as I just shared, I'm not a therapist or a psychologist. And so while I knew there was going to be healing through the process, I did not want it to cause more harm than good. And so I spent a lot of time. Matter of fact, every day I would be in prayer. I sent a lot of emails to the women as they were writing, just encouraging them, you know, and just speaking positive affirmations, you know, just to say every morning, hey, amazing women, I know you're working on this, you know, I'm praying for you. God's got you. And so those types of things. But then also just that nervousness of what many felt of what happens when I tell my story. What does it mean for family or friends or co-workers? What will people think if they know the real me and what I've gone through? So definitely some nervousness.
So Miss Shenita, when you got the call, do you feel like you were in a place of already healed or healing, or just done? You understand what I mean? Do you feel like you were in the process still, or do you feel like you were already healed enough to be able to help others? Because I know sometimes we can't hear from God or even acknowledge that He's there until we have some clarity on our own trauma.
Amen to that. So I'm going to be honest with you. I thought I was healed. And as I began to write my chapters, because my chapters are every 5 chapters in the book, and for my journey, it was early on dealing with abandonment, then dealing with molestation, and then really my biggest hurt and pain was always longing for the relationship with my father. And I thought I was over it. Honestly, I thought when I was in my 30s, I'm like, okay, we
passed this.
You're not here? Okay, that's all right. I can keep moving. I can keep doing this. But the little girl inside of me, as I began to write these chapters, she appeared again. And I realized that I needed to write it myself and share with others so I could completely heal. One of the things in the book, as I shared, a lot of it is about my father and that relationship. And we, probably in my 40s, my father called me in tears, asking for forgiveness for not being there. And we began to work on that relationship over the years. And just as we were getting it right, he was diagnosed with cancer. And so I had an opportunity as I began writing this book, and I told him, I'm going to be writing some things that are very difficult. And I was nervous because I thought, okay, what if I lose him all over again because he's angry about what I'm getting ready to write? And he told me, said, baby girl, you need to do it, and you need to do this for yourself and for other women. Unfortunately, 10 days before my book release, my father passed away. So it was really hard to, I wanted him to see the book. I wanted him to hold the book. I wanted him to read the book. But that didn't happen. But I know he's with me.
That's good.
Wow.
Interesting.
So what was your process like? I know you had shared just a moment ago about how you would reach out to the women every morning, giving them encouragement. But for you personally, what was the process like for you each day?
Exciting.
Yeah.
Yet nervous. Yet prayerful. And then very humbling because even today, every time that I have the opportunity to talk about this book, I tell folks, it's not me. I'm like, this is God's book. I happen to be the vessel. And so that was humbling within itself because I don't ever want to get to a place or a space that I don't always acknowledge the God in me that wrote this book, because that's the key piece. And I know it's the God in the book that is helping others when they read the book.
Right.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Thank
So I know that there's a special segment in your book, and we have this young lady in our presence right now
Yes.
that partake in the book of yours, and we would just want to take a moment to bring Miss Bridget up. Yes, come on, girl, come on, stand next to your auntie.
Come on over.
Yes. Yeah.
So as she is coming,
doing all this.
Bridget, she did write a chapter, and she is chapter 34 in the book. And so you can share what's your thoughts and experience. Come on over to the mic. Come on up.
Yeah.
Well, okay.
No, you're fine.
Okay. I was born with meningitis in 1977. And the doctor told my mom to be prepared for me to basically be deaf, blind, won't be able to talk. But through prayer, baptism on the day I was born, I'm able to write things down and to remember the things that I'm not able to remember on my own. I learned in color. Instead of writing everything in black, I got to write everything in color. I've been fired for it because in Indiana, you can be fired for anything. But I keep going.
Wow. We appreciate you for sharing your story, because I know it wasn't easy for you to do this.
Yeah, powerful stuff.
Yeah. So after being able to share your story, what did you get from it?
I want to write my book now.
There you go.
I told her too.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Do that.
wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes.
We appreciate you, Miss Bridget. Thank you for just sharing your story, like for real.
Thank you. And I never did that.
Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you. So we just have powerful testimonies like that that's just in your book.
Yes.
If you don't mind, if you guys don't mind, can we take a few of those and you can just read them on air? If you
Absolutely.
Don't mind? Yeah, I would just like to hear a few
Absolutely.
inserts if that
I
makes sense.
would love to do so. Give me
Yeah.
just a second
you're
to
fine.
get there.
This is beautiful.
So I'll share two of them, and I'll read mine because I always feel as others pick up this book, I want the women's voices to reign true to them. So I'm going to read chapter 15. This chapter is called Navigating Unpredictable Storms. So this was of me in this chapter. As a little girl, I was full of life, with a world of thoughts swirling in my mind. Raised by my loving grandparents, I knew warmth, laughter, and safety. Their home was filled with the aroma of Southern cooking, the heat of a pressing comb, and the sound of gospel music, a comforting contrast to the chaotic world outside. Visits to my father's home and my mother's brought entirely different realities. Like any child, I longed for a deep connection with my father, but I was always met with shadows. What little girl doesn't want to have a special relationship with her father? My father, a man with a very good heart at his core, was consumed by his own demons, often unpredictable and stormy. Thankfully, I had a kind and loving stepmother who embraced me as her own. It was during one of my visits with my father and stepmother that the storm unleashed its fury. Every fiber of my being was filled with excitement for the visit because my stepmother had just brought my precious baby sister into the world. I arrived to see her cradling her third child, or fourth if you counted me. My sweet baby sister's soft coos and tiny cries filled the air, a melody of new life and hope. But the happiness was short-lived. That evening, my father stumbled through the door, reeking of alcohol. My heart sank as the tension in the room escalated as he tried to take the rent money from the dresser drawer to buy more liquor. My stepmother's soft, pleading voice tried to hold the peace. "Please don't take the money. We needed to pay the rent," she said, her tone calm but weary. My father's slurred, venomous words cut through her like a blade. "Why can't you just be quiet for once and let me do what the blankety blank I want to do?" he roared. His face contorted with rage, she stood firm, her silence shining through, but her calm only seemed to stoke his anger further. I felt my skin crawl with fear. As their argument escalated, the walls were closing in around me. Then it happened. In a flash of fury, my father grabbed an umbrella, leaning against the wall, and swung it at my stepmother. The heavy fabric struck her chest, the very chest that nourished her baby girl, my sister. I froze, my breath stolen by the shock of what I had just witnessed. Tears streamed down my face as I ran between them, my voice trembling but loud as I screamed, "Get the blankety blank out and leave her alone." In that moment, a child was forced to become a protector, a defender for someone who had always cared for me. I had never witnessed violence like this. The image seared itself into my memory, a violent contrast to the peaceful life I cherished with my grandparents. Summoning all my courage, I pushed my father away from my stepmother and screamed again, "Get out now." I stood frozen in fear, afraid I would be hit next, afraid the man I longed to have in my life would hate me, afraid his rage would spiral further. But as he looked into my eyes, I caught a fleeting glimpse of hesitation, perhaps even fear. He turned and walked out the door. That night, as I lay in bed, sadness and confusion consumed me. While I cherished the love and care I received from my grandparents, I couldn't shake the longing for my biological parents. Why was my father like this? The question haunted me. Visits to my mother's home offered a different kind of complexity. I would watch her from a distance as she stared at her reflection in the mirror. Her expression was a mix of longing and defeat, as though she were searching for something she couldn't find. On some days, she smiled at me, but it was a smile that never fully reached her eyes. I felt a deep ache in my heart, sensing the battles she fought silently within. As a child, I wanted to ask her why she didn't see her own beauty. To me, my mother was beautiful, but deep down, I knew her past traumas whispered lies in her soul, making her feel small and unworthy. Toxic relationships had left their scars, and I desperately wanted to save her, but how could I? All I ever wanted was for my parents to want me, to love me. As I grew older, God began to open my eyes, helping me understand that my parents loved me the best way they knew how. With this newfound understanding, I began to transform my pain into strength. As an adult, I made the decision to pour into them the love they had struggled to pour into me. I could not and would not give up on them. I channeled my experiences into writing and singing, turning pain into purpose. My grandparents, recognizing my passion, encouraged me to pursue my dreams. They filled me with the belief that I could create a rich life of love and hope. Writing became my refuge, my voice. I penned stories of resilience, light breaking through the darkest clouds, and hope triumphing over despair. Each word I wrote was a testament to God's ability to turn pain into promise and sadness into joy. Over time, I came to view my past not as a burden to carry, but as evidence of my strength. As I reflect on my journal entries, I offer a silent prayer of gratitude for my grandparents whose love enveloped me and for the blessings that guided me through life's storms. I also pray for my parents, whom I love deeply. They are God's children too, and I know that with him all things are possible. Isaiah 41:13, for I, the Lord thy God, will hold thy right hand, saying unto thee, fear not, I will help thee.
Wow. Yeah. So my first thought and question, first thought is that it's very powerful.
Yes.
Just for that short chapter. But also, I see that it's more than just, this is your first book, right?
Correct.
First published book.
Correct.
But you mentioned that you was a writer anyway.
Yes.
And that's reflective of what you just read. So my question, and a lot of questions, but I'll keep it.
That's all right. That's all you want.
So how was it for you to finally decide and get to the publication part? I don't know if it's self-published, and how was that process for you? And then had you ever thought about writing officially before?
So I had not thought about writing officially before. I did a lot of journaling all my life, and I love to write poetry as well. But I never imagined that I would be a published author.
Right.
So the process for me is I knew a couple of other individuals who had been published, and I knew I did not want to self-publish. There are strengths to that and a whole lot of weaknesses that come along when you are dealing with your work, because other people can begin to own your work. So I knew I wanted a Christian publisher, and I knew that I want them to look like me. So the recommendation came for Hope of Vision Publishing, which is out of Connecticut. And I made contact and asked the publisher if we could do a Zoom, because I needed to see their face.
Right.
And I needed to see their expressions as we engaged in conversation. And we connected. And I could clearly see the God within the woman I was talking to. And so that's how it came about. Excellent working with her. The process felt seamless and easy.
Did you feel like they allowed you to be your true self and what you wanted to share without, editing everything and saying, no, you can't say this, or no, we won't do that?
They did. And that was important to me, because particularly for, not so much for myself, but for these women, I told them, I don't want you changing their stories. You look at the grammar, you look at format if we need to, but there are some women that are amazing writers, some women that are just trying to get their story across. But I wanted the readers to read the words as if that woman was sharing their story face to face with them.
That's good.
That's where you get the authenticity, though.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then let's talk a little bit about toxic relationships. And we all know that a lot of our adult problems come from
Stem from
what we
childhood problems.
dealt with in childhood or not dealt with.
Absolutely.
And so if you don't mind just sharing a little bit about how that worked for you. How old were you when you witnessed
that's
this?
my question.
That
So,
part of the story.
When I witnessed this, I was at that time 13 years old. So which was difficult. I mean, I had seen and I'd visited, and there's some parts in the book. My time with my dad was usually summer breaks, for a couple weeks here or there, or on a weekend. I lived in Indiana. He lived in Cincinnati. So I never had seen it at that magnitude. I'd seen him drinking and doing those types of things, but never where there was physical violence. And so that shifted a lot for me.
Right. And how did that impact if you don't mind sharing, how did that impact your relationships as you did grow
Right.
older and become a young adult? How did that impact you?
It impacted me in a negative manner. Not so much the experience of the abuse, but I will share some things with that. But really the fact, it opened my eyes to young women. Because one of the things that I discovered over my time is I was searching for my father in people that I dated. And not so much that, oh, this is the most amazing guy. No, I just wanted somebody to validate me and tell me that they loved me, all the things that I did not get from my father. And so you get a little older and you have to look at the man in the mirror. And I realized there's nothing that a man that I was dating that could give me, because that had to be a void that had to be filled by God and then prepare me for a king that would recognize this queen.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. Awesome. One more thing before we wrap up. You started off the conversation by saying you got a call from God. So can you just touch on your relationship with him?
Absolutely.
We gotta put that in there.
Absolutely. I'll be glad. I can talk all day about God now.
Come on.
So for me, I was blessed, and you don't realize it when you're young. I was very bitter at a young age because I always wondered, why did my mother not want me? Why did my father not want me? And why was I with my mother's foster parents? So these weren't even people. You read the book, everybody had a different last name because I was with my mother's foster parents. And so for me, it was that journey of, really digging deep with this. But what I recognized as I got older, God placed me right where I needed to be, because I didn't have to live what my siblings lived with my dad, and I didn't have to live what my two brothers lived with my mom and see the things she went through. He placed me in a Christian home where I was rooted and grounded in church. Had to go to church probably more days than I wanted to on some, but that's what I knew. Not that I was this perfect child. I was a teenager. I did my things, and I had to, come to God on my own. But God he led me into the ministry. So it led me. I love to sing. I'm a singer. And so, singing in the church all the time, calling on my life to speak. So I began ministering and speaking in different places. And so for me, it's been this journey always with God. It's the thing that keeps me positive and keeps me going.
Yeah. I mean, we see it in you. You got that glow.
Thank you.
No, we're being serious.
Well, thank you.
You have it. And we appreciate you sharing your story. We appreciate you sharing the other, the ladies sharing their story. Because again, like you said, what stays in the house stays in the house. Nobody wants to talk about the bad, the ugly, the unseen. So for you to put that in a book in this climate now is necessary.
Thank you. I think everybody's so worried, like you said, what other people will think. Yeah. You know what I mean? But I go back to anybody that cares about you, that loves you, wants you to be healthy. Mentally, spiritually, emotionally, physically healthy, And I always say to you, like you said, you were blessed. And I believe, you're blessed with adversity because it makes you a stronger person. It creates the person that you're supposed to become. You know what I mean? And another theme too, I think a lot of us find that refuge with the grandparents. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I think that's a part of our culture. I think a lot of people might miss out on. Yes. You know what I mean? So but thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. It's a blessing.
Yeah. So we want to leave everybody with, again, this is Shenita Bolton. This is amazing for her to be on our podcast tonight. So please share with everybody how we can get your book. Where will you be? Will there be a book signing? All that good stuff.
Absolutely. So the book is on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, online on Walmart, online on Target. There's the Worldwide Books, which is international as well. So I'm blessed to be on a lot of platforms. It's nobody but God. He's keeps blowing my mind. But I will be out at Glenbrook Mall at Barnes & Noble on March 29th. So if you're available on that Saturday, come and see me between noon and 3. If you haven't purchased your book, you can purchase it there, and I'll sign it for you. And then there are also some other places that I will be over the next few months for some other Barnes & Noble locations.
Okay. Any like social media? Do you have a website?
It's coming.
Oh, okay.
It's coming. It's coming. It's coming. Okay. So I do want to also say, if you don't mind,
yes,
God jokes. Unveiled 2 is coming. And so I will begin that work in the summer, and men, get ready, because you're next.
All right,
so
all right.
Get ready, men. Get ready, men.
Okay. So again, thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight for Your Mental Health Matters. Thank you, Ms. Shenita Bolton, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Again, we are here on the first and third Friday of every month. So please tune in for our next podcast. Please protect your mind. It's so important. Protect your mind. Thank you.